Mind if I just ramble for a minute? Hey folks, it's Mary, aka MercyTriumphs, and this is my channel Slow Crochet. Today's video is something I will put under the category of philosophy of crochet, which is my way of saying one of the reasons I have this channel is to take all the thoughts I have in my head and kind of let them rattle around and then come out and see what y'all think. Let's have a discussion today, and this one I am titling Crochet is Inherently Hopeful. Now I do have some notes here and I'm going to try to keep up with them as I film, but if my eyes are darting back and forth, that's why. And hopefully I won't sound too much like I'm just reading the phone book. So crochet is inherently hopeful. What do I mean by that? Well, I first want to take a step backwards, and as I understand it, crochet has its origins as a technique that was decorative. It was used to create patterns and kind of lace work on already existing fabric. Eventually, someone had the idea to just take that lace work right on off the edge, and now we have crochet that is independent of fabric. But crochet does not have the same history as something like a woven fabric does or a knit fabric. Those things are utilitarian, and crochet, even though it has kind of grown into having some utilitarian purposes, you can make sweaters, you can make blankets, that is not how it started. It started as lace. It started as decoration. It started really as something frivolous. It started out as an activity for people who had the means to have the leisure time to add decorative touches to their clothing or their pillows or their other kinds of fabric goods in their homes. It's not essential, but it's beautiful. Years and years ago, I read a book by John and Stacey Eldridge called Captivating. And in this book, I was first introduced to just the idea in my young mind of how beauty heals. And so the authors were making this point by talking about how when someone passes away, one way that you offer comfort and your condolences is to send flowers. You bring beauty into someone's life when they're in a lot of pain. So I see this reflected in other ways as well. When your soul is feeling weary, when you feel overwhelmed, when I feel overwhelmed, or even just when I'm starting my morning and those rare mornings that it's quiet and I'm the only one up, if I can catch a glimpse of the sunrise and I can just have this moment to experience this beauty, this frivolous beauty, right? There is no practical purpose to having a colorful sunrise. There's no practical purpose to having a colorful sunset, to my understanding. I'm sure that there are explanations for all of it. For all intents and purposes in my life, that is a frivolous beauty. Nature is full of it, and I find that so wonderful and comforting. You know, there's a reason that we bring house plants into our homes. There's a reason that we love going outside in nature to find healing and rest in a time when the world is going crazy and our internal world and our family and whatever it may be, there can be all kinds of drama and mess going on in our lives, and we are searching for beauty to bring peace into our lives. So it's not something that's really easy to put into words, but I do think that hope and beauty are inextricably linked. Beauty creates this environment that allows us to hope. So hope is a pretty tricky thing. On the one hand, it can sustain us through a lot of dark days, but then on the other hand, it can feel like a prison. My close friend and I have talked about something that the prophet Zechariah says. He refers to prisoners of hope, and the verse goes something like, "Return to your rest, you prisoners of hope, because the Lord has dealt bountifully or double with you." And she and I have talked about seasons of our life where we have a hope for something and we just can't move past that hope until it's completed or fulfilled. In Proverbs, it talks about how hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. And so there's this waiting and then this longing that can be painful. But then here comes the role of beauty again. Here comes something like crochet, this frivolous, decorative lacework, these knots and yarns and hooks and all these different little techniques that we do. And then as we're engaging with something like crochet, in our pain, it's offering us this moment to breathe. How many times have we had a rough day and things have happened outside of our control that we did not at all want to happen, and we come home, and in order to unwind, we pick up a hook and we pick up some yarn. We take something as chaotic as a skein of yarn and we bring something wonderful out of it. We take this chaos, we bring order and beauty from it. And something in our souls, whether it's just the continuous rhythm of doing something where we can put our brain on autopilot, or we can just be absorbed in this work. And there's soothing and there's comfort and then there's healing that gives us a way to kind of come up above our circumstances and to have hope and to be sustained to go out and face it yet again. So on a side note, that is one reason to have a stash of yarn that you love, because sometimes just being with that beauty, those colors, those textures, there's a healing and a lightness that comes from that. And it's not wrong to actively bring beauty into your life. So when life is in chaos, or when the world is going to hell in a handbasket, I can pick up a skein of yarn. The color is beautiful. The texture is just right, but it's formless. So then I can take my hook and I can start to turn that long strand, that tangly knot of nothing, into something. And maybe it has a practical function. Maybe it's a doily. Maybe it's going to cover a table. Maybe it's a sweater. It's going to bring some warmth, but it doesn't have to be. Or maybe it's just a toy to make a child smile. But as I'm working with it, I am making something beautiful, and the rhythm and the stitches and the reward of seeing something coming together in my hands, the joy that's not necessarily the happiness, but the contentment of that, of creating something, it reminds me to just hang on. This isn't the end of the story. I might feel like a prisoner in this hope, but I'm going to stick it out just a little bit longer, and I'm not going to give in to that darkness. Our world is full of frivolous beauty, wasteful, gorgeous colors that splash all over the skies in the mornings and in the evenings, in the spring and in the seas and the oceans. Textures and forms that are overlapping, and then when there's shadows or there's rain and the colors just come out in new ways, it's amazing. So when we crochet, we are offering up that same kind of frivolous beauty, and we do hope that it matters. Our hearts are pouring out through our hands, and we feel soothed by that. We can make it another day. We can bear this load. There's some good in this world, as Sam Gamgee says in The Fellowship of the Ring, the movie version, and it's worth sticking around here for. But whether or not it matters or not isn't really the point. If I'm making something and it's not well received, that's okay. The point is for our hearts to offer. When I'm crocheting, I am saying, hey, I'm part of this mountain stream, as it were. And as long as I'm flowing out, more can flow in. I have to always be creating something because I was actually made to be an outflow, to be a recipient, but also to flow out. And when I'm crocheting, I'm offering beauty to the world. I'm putting my heart out there. And maybe that's just in the colors that I've chosen for my project, and maybe putting it out there is just putting it out into my own home. But that whole act of creation, that whole act of adding beauty and adding value out into the world is a reflection of my heart saying, there's worth to this. There's hope to be had. This is not the end of the story. There is healing to be had, and whatever pain we're experiencing, whatever we're going through is not the end. This is not going to last. There is hope. So we can be wasteful in that frivolity of offering that beauty. It's really easy to give into the temptation to just live in disappointment and to close off and to kind of hide our hearts away. But when we crochet, we are opening ourselves up again. We are doing something beautiful. We're making something in hope. We create beauty in spite of ourselves, and we grow in confidence that our hope is not in vain. So those are my philosophical, maybe a little theological rattlings around in there. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you feel hopeful when you crochet? Do you think crochet is inherently hopeful? Do you think being creative is a form of adding beauty to the world? Have you ever thought of specifically linking hope to crochet? I would love to know your thoughts, just because on this channel it's fun to get some dialogue going and to get outside of my head and see what other people think. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate just y'all listening as I let all this rattle around out of my mouth, and hopefully it's made some kind of sense to you. If I'm not your cup of tea, thank you so much for listening this long. I do appreciate it, and I do hope I'll see you again soon. Bye.